Last night, this is the song that they play when they're going to the review for one of a long line of Jack Drury's now lost goals. This is an unofficial stat in the NHL. I believe Jack Drury has the record for the most goals waved off by goaltender interference in NHL history. Like, I think he's got it's at least 6.
Carolina Hurricanes are actually 0-82 in goaltender interference calls.
You got that off my Twitter last night.
Thank you.
You got right, except that I completely made that up. It just seems like it.
I mean, you had me fooled.
Right, it just seems like it. Tim Peel, a former NHL on-ice official, he's done tons of Hurricanes games. He joins us, Snipes and Stripes podcast that he does with Jeremy Roenick. He is a wonderful guy, and I appreciate your time. Mr. Peel, how are you?
I'm great, Adam. One thing, listening to you guys, I don't think I'd want to play on Jack Drury's line because it doesn't sound like he gets any breaks.
None. It's actually funny to an extent that it does always seem to be Jack. And I actually did it. He's a very serious kid. So when I do pregame interviews sometimes with players, I try to make him laugh. Jack is almost impossible, but I did ask him, like, how do you feel about leading the league in goals waved off? And that got him. So he laughed. He actually told me a story after that where he said in college, he was, the captain of his team at Harvard. And in college, he had a teammate that had a goal waved off because of whatever. And he said, you just got to deal with it and move on. He was giving the guy advice. He goes, and now it happens to me all the time. I think the number it might be more than 6. He has had a bunch of goals waved off. I don't know if you've seen the play from last night's game, Tim Peel.
I have.
Do you think that was goaltender interference? It's okay, because I actually did. My initial reaction was that it was, but I might have been jaded by scars from past seasons. But because it's a 50-50 call either way.
Yeah, you know what? It's goaltender interference. First of all, we're usually not talking about this until April or May when the playoffs start.
Right.
Now we're starting to talk about it in early December before Christmas. I watched it several times. My initial reaction when I first saw it was Eric Robinson backed into the Seattle goaltender, therefore he wasn't pushed in, he backed in, his momentum carried him in, therefore no goal. But after watching it a few times, Robinson, as you can see, he never enters the blue. Mm-hmm. And the Seattle goaltender was actually the one that put his hands up, his glove and his blocker, to kind of push at Robinson to keep him out of the crease. And I think that the Seattle goaltender actually initiated the contact. I wouldn't have a problem if they counted that a goal. And I hate to see goals taken away. We're trying to promote goal scoring in the National Hockey League. I think this is one that probably could have stayed a goal.
Tim Peel is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. That's what a lot of was mentioned in my timeline. And like I said, my initial tweet was, my first reaction when I saw the replay was it's going to be called goaltender interference. And part of that at the end, I said, but I'm not sure it's not swayed by the fact that it was Jack Drury who shot it, and it was a great shot. And honestly, I don't know if they keep records on this. I can't recall, covering the Hurricanes for more than the last decade, I can't recall them winning a goaltender interference call either way, whether it's a goal that they tried to get wiped out or a goal that they tried to have stand. I can't remember the last time the Hurricanes won one of those. So I admit that it's probably swayed because we expect the worst. But what about, do you have to be, does Eric Robinson, does he have to be in the blue paint, or can part of him just be kind of hovering over the blue paint?
Well, first of all, one question, because I couldn't tell from the replay. Did the officials on the ice call it a goal?
Yes.
Or did they wave it off?
No, it was initially called a goal.
Okay. So here's my thought process on that is, the officials on the ice called it a goal, which means it goes to the situation room in Toronto. And I have a lot of respect for those guys, Chris King, Coley Campbell, Kay Whitmore, and so on, that work in that war room. And they have to, because it was called a goal on the ice, they have to decide whether there is sufficient evidence to overturn that call. Personally, watching that, I don't think there's sufficient evidence to overturn the call on the ice by the officials. I've seen much worse that have not been overturned, and this is one that, like I say, they've got a tough job out there, that because one team is going to be happy and one team is not at the end of the day, no matter what the call is. But in regards to your question on Eric Robinson, he cannot enter the blue paint by himself. He can be, if he's shoved in, cross-checked in, so on, then the goal would stand. In this case here, he can't, even if the Seattle goaltender or any goaltender is 6 inches, 8 inches outside of his crease, the goalie, the attacking player cannot initiate contact with that goalie, even though he's out of the crease.
Right.
So because we have goalies, goalies come out to cut off angles. We have goalies being run over all the time. We can't have that. Once again, Robinson has his back to him. He's backing up. The Seattle goaltender initiates the contact. In this case here, I feel for Rod Brind'amour and I feel for Jack Drury, because I think this is a goal that should have stood.
It was an elite level shot too, just a dynamite shot from a sharp angle. Have you ever disagreed with Toronto? Have you been in the same position as the officials were? So do you say over the headset, are you guys bleeping kidding? You're taking that goal away? Have you ever had one of those moments?
Absolutely. I've had several of those over the years, and before. So now Toronto has the final call, but years ago, when they first brought in video review for goaltender interference, the officials, Toronto would show it to us on the iPad, but the officials on the ice had the last say. And now Toronto has the last say. And that has basically been done to develop consistency, even though people might not think that it's consistent. But instead of having the interpretation of 37 referees across the league, we've got the interpretation of 2 or 3, 4 guys in the situation room that are there every night and have a wealth of experience. So, but no, I had plenty where I'd say, before they had the final say, I would say, I disagree. I'm calling this a goal, or I'm waving it off, one or the other. And they weren't happy at the time, but I went with what I felt was the right thing to do.
Tim Peel is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. All right, final thing. First of all, Rod Brind'amour was pretty calm about all of it, which I am stunned. I would have been speaking in tongues last night because Carolina wasn't any good. It would have been stealing a hockey game last night because they did not play well, but that would have given them a 3-2 lead, and who knows if they could have held it. I thought Seattle played a very good game last night. But what would happen if the league, I don't know, I mean, do they even care enough to look at it again? And if the team sent them tapes, why didn't you do this? Could the league then send a letter or call Tom Dundon or call Rod Brind'amour and said, yeah, we screwed that up? Have they ever done that?
They could. I'm sure that they absolutely. I know that they have for a fact. In retrospect, we looked at the play again, and you know what? I think we got this one wrong. What they will do amongst themselves, because they have numerous guys that are in and out of that situation room every night. It's not always the same people.
Right.
It's Rod Pasma, Chris King, Kay Whitmore, etc. They'll send that clip to the other people that man the stations at the situation room, and they'll ask them their opinion. Do you guys think we got this one right? Do you think that is this the standard? Is this the standard that we want to enforce going forward? Or were we a little too strict on this one, and should we have allowed this goal? They'll have these internal discussions, and absolutely the GM of Carolina, I'm sure, was on the phone with Coley Campbell maybe this morning to get another explanation. And Coley would say, no, this is a standard we want to uphold, or you know what? Maybe we may owe you one. And trust me, no one wants to hear it, but that happens as well, where all of a sudden you've had 3 or 4 goals waved off, and game 62, one's kind of on the fence, and they're like, you know what? I think we may need to let this one count. We've called so many against them. I'm not saying that if it's egregious that they're going to allow it, but if it's a 50-50 one, maybe they'll say, you know what? I think we need to allow this one here. So that goes on too. Listen, I got accused of game management. There's game management in all sports,
right? In
the situation room, in life. It's how you. Sports is not black and white. There's game management at all levels in this.
No question about it. There's a ton of gray area in goaltender interference. I said yesterday that the same exact play tomorrow would be ruled a goal, and nobody would complain about it. I mean, people would complain about it, but it's certainly a 50-50 play. I will say that we can't have goaltenders. Kay Whitmore, former goalie, we can't have goaltenders in the situation room. Goaltenders always think it's interference.
Well, and one last thing, Adam. We had the toe in the crease back years ago.
Yes.
Brett Hull scored the game winner for Dallas over the Buffalo Sabres. That rule was instituted for a year or two where if a player was on the other side of the net and wasn't even involved in the play, and he didn't score the goal, but his foot was in the crease, they would disallow the goal. They were trying to make it black and white.
Yep.
You can't make goaltender interference black and white. As you alluded to, there's a lot of gray area. And you know what? For the handful of instances that we have throughout, 1,400 games, we probably have 10, maybe 20 the entire year that people kind of throw their hands up and they're not sure exactly what goaltender interference is. I think they do a pretty good job in Toronto. Tim
Peel, retired NHL referee, Snipes and Stripes podcast. I don't know. Roenick got top billing? That's weak.
Well, he sniped a lot of goals in the NHL, so he came up with a name. I couldn't.
Okay.
He came up, and he's a Hall of Famer now. So I've got to take a second seat to him. But I'm proud to call him my podcast partner. He's a good man and very well deserved to be inducted in the Hall of Fame this past month.
I appreciate your time, Mr. Peel. Tim Peel at Tim C. Peel 20 on Twitter. We'll talk again soon. Thank you very much for doing this.
Thanks, Adam. Take care.
You got it.